Welcome. So glad to have you here on the Realty Funnels Podcast. I'm so excited today to welcome my good friend Darren Saunderson, who is in the Gold Coast in Australia. Darren, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. Great to chat with you.
It's always a pleasure. I always enjoy our conversations. So let's give our listeners, our viewers, a quick rundown on who is Darren Saunderson.
Someone who's been in real estate for a long time, 1997, who's worked his way up from a salesperson with very little experience in sales prior to real estate, getting through to becoming a salesperson, leading a team of 3, then growing into a sales manager, then becoming a principal, starting a new business. So an array of different experiences through the real estate sector. And then I started doing some sort of coaching and training in my 2nd and 3rd year for some of the other agents in my group. And that became something I became really passionate about. I really enjoyed it. So then I started to take on more coaching. And before you know it was 1 day a week doing coaching and training for outside agents, outside of our own company. And then that grew. And then I had some children. Well, my wife had the children. I was part of it, but obviously my wife had the children. And then because of that, I decided I wanted to spend more time in that space. And so I took that path of training and coaching, and I enjoy helping other people and listening to other people's stories, understand what their human psyche, their human behavior, their social dynamic of what makes people do what they do. And I've been very fortunate to work with some great people over the course of the last 10, 15 years doing what I'm doing, but not just in real estate, salespeople in general, and a lot of small and medium businesses, as well as some quite large, $1 billion businesses that I've been involved with in terms of the sales and the C-suite sort of levels as well. So I've had some great exposure, and because of that, I've had some great opportunity to learn and see some different perspectives. And I'm very fortunate about what I do. I love human beings, and I love understanding what it is that makes people operate and do what they do. So that's me in a nutshell. Outside of that, personally, I'm the father of 2 girls, 15 and 12, and been married for coming up to 17 years now. I love a bit of a sports tragic. I love learning. I love reading. I love traveling. And when I'm not doing that, I'm typically on the phone with someone about their life and their world and what it is that they want to aspire to become and what it is that they're after, and help them try and bridge that gap between where and what they are now and the future version of themselves, which all of us are aspiring to become, a better version. So,
and that's what we focus on in our own 6-figure month coaching program that Darren and I have put together, is helping agents, specifically salespeople in residential real estate. But really, these are the same habits, the same skill sets of anybody who is looking to achieve more in their own self-directed sales career. It's a real question of what it is that they focus on, how they block their time to accomplish their most important tasks, and the habits that they have around achievement. Isn't that the case?
Spot on, Kevin. Maybe I'll just go back a step. I think it's a really good point. I had a period where I was working, I reckon 6 to 7 years as a real estate agent, and I was doing about 100 hours a week. And I'm not saying that as a badge of honor. I'm not saying that I'd recommend anyone do that. I think looking back, it was quite irresponsible. I had no one, not that anyone had to do that, but I didn't really have anyone pull me back. The more I did, I had people saying, yeah, do more, do more, do more. And what I realized is that, there's a little acronym for that. It's called IOUs. And that was me. I was giving out all these IOUs to myself. The I being I was incredibly imbalanced. My life became really imbalanced. It was all real estate. I would literally wake up in the middle of the night. I'd be working some nights till 10 o'clock. I'd wake up at 2 o'clock with a pen and paper and write down who I need to go and see the next morning because something came to mind. I'd get up the next morning. I'd be knocking on someone's door or speaking to someone at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'd do that 7 days a week. And because of that, the O starts, so the IOU, the O is overstressed. I was incredibly stressed. And because of that stress, whether I like it or not, I was stressing those around me. And other people, because they were around me, were getting overwhelmed. So the environment that I was creating whilst I was doing a lot of business, it wasn't really a great environment to be around. And then the last part for me was I became somewhat uninspired with doing real estate after a period of time, because someone gave me a bit of a slap in the face, which I was certainly in need of. And it was actually my stepfather. My stepfather said to me one day, I don't know if you realize what you're becoming. Yes, you're this salesperson. Yes, you're doing all these sales, but you're not the person that I've become to know, like, and love. You're actually going the other way. So
Wow.
when I looked at that, it was a really big reflection point for me in my life. And I look back now, and part of what we do, Kevin, with other agencies, there's always that balance between having to help people move forward in that direction. But I also find there's that having the reins and pulling people back. And when I look back now on my real estate career, particularly those years where I was doing a lot of business and I was working a lot of hours, I really, would have loved someone just to pull me back. Now, whether I would have listened is totally different, because I probably would have said, get out of my way, I know what I'm doing. But now I can see in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, that I was going way too hard and I was destroying so many aspects of my life that I wasn't proud of. So part of the whole holistic look at salespeople, sales industries, real estate, whatever it might be that you're doing in your own career, is to stop and really think about that. What's the balance look like? Now, I'm not saying it has to be a perfectly balanced life, but it has to be areas of your life that are getting some of your energy and prioritization. And that was something that I was incredibly poor at for a long period of time. And, the antidote for that for me was Cindy, my wife, making me realize that there was far more important things to just, what I was going after. And I think I was sold on this whole mentality of it's all about achievement. So, when I get 10 listings in a month, then I'll be successful. When I get 100 listings and sales in a year, then I'll be more successful. And I was chasing achievement. And it didn't matter what I chased, I still wasn't getting that level of fulfillment or that level of happiness. So I realized that it wasn't about the achievement. It was really about who I was becoming. And when I look at that and I think about that today, I wasn't becoming a version of myself that I'd be incredibly proud of or happy with. And it's amazing what happens when you go from being a person that's single, that thinks about yourself, pretty much that's all you think about, to having a partner where you have to share some of those thoughts and empathy towards someone else. And then, of course, having children in your life, where it goes to, that layer goes down and you become not less important, but you have other factors that are just as important, or if not more important at times. So, I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but that IOU for me was realizing with a lot of our clients that, yes, we want them to achieve 6 figures a month. Yes, we want them to get what they want to achieve, but we're also very mindful about having the balance, not being overstressed or overwhelmed, and ensuring that they're clear on what progress, what fulfillment, and what contribution looks like to them in their lives.
I think it's so brilliant, the notion of IOU, which is that you were, refresh me, because I was just about to say it right, and then the I is?
Imbalanced,
and the O is overstressed, and the U is unimpressed.
Uninspired,
yes.
And the uninspiring can be two ways, because I think there'll be a period of time where you could be the lead agent or you could be the lead salesperson in your business, and you could be selling the house down. You could be selling everything out, but it doesn't mean you're inspiring others. There comes a point where, yes, you are inspiring others, and there comes a point where you become a version of yourself, which is not great. In my case, where I became less inspiring.
Right.
And I went past that tipping point of being a better version of myself and being someone who could, demonstrate empathy, that could be vulnerable. I wasn't doing that then. It was all about me being the person. My ego took control. I was being a lesser version of myself, yet I was focused so much and so driven on making money and achieving things, being the number one person, just in the office, then in the group, then in the whole marketplace. And I lost sight of who was I actually becoming. And my focus today is totally different. whilst achievement, yes, there's elements and goals, etc., that I'm aiming at, but my focus is really about who I'm becoming. And when I sit down with anyone, when I get on a Zoom call like this, I really want to make sure that I can help someone else become a better version of themselves or go in that direction.
And really, when it comes down to it, achieving six figures in a month is merely a record keeping, a score keeping tool. It's not a judgment on whether that's the right goal for any one particular person or not. It's just merely one way of keeping track of how you're achieving according to what you've said your goals are. And achieving six figures per month doesn't mean you have to sacrifice family time, your health and wellness, exercise, or sleep. It's really about dialing it down to figure out what are the most important things you should be doing that drive your achievement. How do you block your time appropriately to get that work in and done? And then are you getting the results that you wanted from the efforts that you're putting forth?
Yeah, well said, Kevin. Very true. It's the six-figure concept is really about a couple of things. It's all the things you've mentioned, but it's also, I had a conversation with a lady yesterday, and a lot of people are really focused on their turnover. And when we sit down with a lot of people, business owners, etc., they're very quick to tell us how much revenue, what their turnover is. And a business mentor I had many, many years ago said to me something that's very simple, very profound, but it's always stayed in my head. And that is that turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. And when I look at that, what's more important with our six-figure month is we want agents, we want salespeople, we want business owners to earn six figures and beyond if that's what they desire. But we want them to retain that and make that money work for them as well.
Yeah, what I call a real business.
You got it. You could be, because there's no point. Yeah, there's no point making 100 and spending 110. So we want to get people to really think about not just the turnover, but making sure that they can keep some of that and invest in some of that. And with that money, that can allow them other possibilities that go into these things around that, give them the balance, that create them to be more in a more harmonious life, and to be inspired by other things outside of what they're doing day to day as well as that.
Right, exactly. The notion that a real estate agent, for example, but really any salesperson in any career, if they're spending more in ad spend than they're bringing in revenue, it doesn't matter what their revenue numbers are. They're in the hole.
Yeah,
if they're putting in 60 hours a week in order to achieve a certain level of income, when are they going to have any time to enjoy the success that they've had?
Yeah, I've spoken with a lot of tech businesses, and I think tech is a different example. But there's they're doing revenue of $2 million, but they're burning $4 million a year.
Oh yeah,
and then their multiple's worth 20 times, and it's just a different psychology of doing that, like being in business, working full time, having a team, but you're losing double that you're making every year, or sometimes 5 or 6 times or 10 times what you're making. So it's hard to get around that. So I think there's a combination of things we're thinking about here, and the key thing for salespeople is to move from that salesperson's hat into a business person's hat, and that's typically the most difficult transition or transformation that yourself, Kevin, and I are involved with people. And it really becomes, how do we help that person become a better thinker? Now, you mentioned before, we've talked about on numerous occasions the importance of mindset and the shift in mindset, and that combined with becoming a better thinker. And for me, the first step about that is really how self-aware someone is, because when they have a level of self-awareness around what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, it makes our role in terms of working with that person far easier. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't have a heightened level of self-awareness, and there's a great saying, you can't see the picture in the frame. And part of this becoming a better thinker for us and for anyone else is really about shining the torch on someone's blind spots, because we all have them. I mean, I've been driving probably like you for a long period of time, and it was only a month ago that I pulled out of the car park and didn't look in my blind spot, and the car came past and I managed to clip the front of it. So we all have them. And it doesn't matter whether you think you don't have them or not. It's very easy to realize there's a lot of blind spots we have. So becoming a better thinker, I think, is something incredibly integral to a transformation for someone who really wants to go to the next level of their sales career, towards six figures, for example, to have better health, to have a better relationship. The awareness piece is incredibly important when it comes to adapting our thinking. And to do that, we really have to understand and start to diagnose, whether that's through data, which is incredibly important. For some people, it's as simple as starting a journal and start to understand that we have loops of behavior that we can alter when we understand what they are. So I think that's incredibly important as well, is to, you and I have a lot of conversations with people that really want to aspire to get to another level of their business. They feel like they're stuck. They don't know which way to go, which direction's best for them moving forward. And a lot of times we just slow it down and really get them to think about how they're thinking and why they are where they are. And, it wasn't long ago in a conversation I heard you say to someone, Kevin, that, they were where they were because they had the mindset, the skill set, and the beliefs and the behaviors. That's why they were where they were. And to adjust their outcomes and end results, they had to adjust those things.
That's the thing for so many people. And you think about it, a real estate agent is doing very, very well to earn, say, $250,000 per year. That's a successful real estate agent, until you slow down to realize they've been earning $250,000 a year for the past 5 years. Now, who works for 5 years and doesn't get a pay raise? Their pay grade should be drastically different today than it was 5 years ago. And yet the reality of it, unfortunately, is with the rising cost of homes, they're actually selling fewer homes to earn $250,000. With inflation, they're actually taking home less buying power with $250,000 today than they were 5 years ago. And yet, by every measure, they're a more knowledgeable, skillful, experienced real estate agent 5 years hence. And yet they have this notion in their head that I earn $250,000 a year. I'm doing really, really well. I'm excited. I'm grateful. I'm happy. Until they realize they're actually earning less money every year, when any other industry they'd be earning more money. So then you and I look at it and we're like, well, the reason that they're stuck at that plateau is because they have the mindset, the skill set, and the habits of a $250,000 a year producer. And what they really need to do is change up their mindset, add some additional skill set. And that might include outsourcing. It might include automations. It might include a better use of technology. And then they also need to grab a better sense of their use of time blocking so that they are accomplishing more of the things that only they can accomplish during more of their working hours per week. So yes, they're stuck at 250 because they're having the mindsets, the habits, and the behaviors of a 250 a year producer.
Yeah, so true. So true. And the key thing is that any area of your life where you think, if you just ask yourself one question, if I look at all the areas of my life, is there an area that I think is set that I can forget? And it's a very dangerous thing to do. Some might say it's the status quo. Others might call it complacency. But in each of our areas of life, if we get complacent about our health, our relationship, our finances, if we just think we know that now, we've got to a point where we understand the lay of the land, we stay there, very quickly people catch us, and very quickly people go past us. And regardless of what you're selling, regardless of what your business is, the minute we sit still too long and we get that level of comfort, that's where danger starts to creep in. And you're right. I mean, there's just, if you take that example of real estate, in 5 years in some areas, they've had 100% growth on average house prices. So that alone means if you just stay at the same level, you could double your income On the flip side, if you're earning the same income and the houses have doubled, that means you've got half the business today you had 5 years ago. But it also means that you're doing a lot less today than you were 5 years ago. So if that continues, then you know where that's going to go. So whilst the past doesn't have to equal the future, unfortunately, because of our behaviors and our thinking, unless we're adjusting that and improving that, then that's where we tend to end up.
I think of it in a slightly more cautious notion as well, which is they're unaware perhaps that they're putting in the same 40 hours a week, maybe 50 hours a week.
Yes.
And in order for them to achieve the same amount of sales income, they're actually getting less done in 40 or 50 hours a week than they used to. Because if the home prices have increased by half, or if they've doubled, then we know that they should be able to get all that same amount of work done in half the time or 3/4 of the time. But they're still putting in the 40 or 50 hours a week. What are they doing with their time? Why aren't they more effective? Why haven't they increased the average price points? Why haven't they done more deals in the same amount of time? Why don't they have a team? Why don't they have support? Why don't they have coaches? I think that having a coach is a highly undervalued notion of somebody's path to success. And of course, you and I provide coaching. We're not trying to, push people to think that, hey, these guys are looking to grab more coaching clients. But you think of all the top performing athletes, they don't have just one coach. They have multiple coaches. They have a health and fit, they have a health coach, dietary coach. They have depending on what type of sport they're in, they might have somebody who helps them with their cardiovascular. They might have somebody else who helps them with their muscle build. The notion that you have no coach at all, I think it's such a missed opportunity for anybody who is looking to really go from wherever it is they are right now to where they truly aspire to be.
Yeah, well said. The interesting thing about whether it be a coach, a mentor, someone, getting leverage, scaling a business, is that every salesperson on the planet is asking for the same thing. They're asking for a prospective client to invest in their service, their offering, their product. Yet a lot of those same salespeople aren't willing to invest in themselves.
Oh, wow. So true.
So to me, I know you and I met through an investment that we both made and came together in a different program, and that's how we met, because we're regularly investing in ourselves. And to me, it would be a massive contradiction if I expect or ask others to invest in what I can provide if I don't invest in myself every year. Not just once off, I did this program 5 years ago, like continually upgrade. So I look at life really simply. There's two versions of myself, and regardless of where I am today and where I aspire to be, there's always going to be this gap. And my goal is to try and close that gap, knowing that I may never close that gap. But I'm always trying to close that gap. On the flip side, if I just accept that I'm this person today, I'm always going to be that person, that gap's just going to keep on increasing.
So true.
I've had an interesting week. I've got my auntie unfortunately passed away, and
to hear of that.
Yeah, and she's an amazing woman, very spiritual woman. I learned a lot from her. I got my desire to travel from her. She traveled the world, left Australia at 18, lived in America, actually lived in New York, and never came home. I mean, she came back to visit a couple of times, but she lived in New York most of her life. And I think about her life and the impact it got me to travel. And then at the same week, my best friend's mother got diagnosed with motor neuro disease. And it's got a very short time, but she's been a part of my life since I was 16, almost like a default mother. And when I talk about those things, because I realize that life is short. It's, that we have this vision in sales that it lasts forever. And one thing I realized that is there's this level of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing we have. And if you can use that to drive yourself and go, right, whether you've been doing your role for 2 years, 5 years, 25 years, it doesn't really matter. It's always looking at, if I've only got 2 years, if I've got 5 years, what is it that I can become? What's the value that I can provide in that period of time? And everything shakes it up. It's like that you're about to go on a holiday, Kevin. You and Lisa are about to go on holiday, and you're scrambling around for that last week because you know that there's this deadline that's going to come around. And once that time comes around, there's nothing you can do about it. But the volume of work and the prioritization you have in that week, because of the level of clarity, the purpose, and the passion of going away combined, it's amazing what we can create. And I'm saying that because if you take that example there and you put that against the norm of a day or a week, how big is that gap? And our goal is really simple. It's really to close that gap with our clients so that more of their days are like the days before they go on holiday. Now, if you can put 30 and then 60 and then 90 of those days together, your world changes very quickly. Because, you know, on another topic, we talk about this 40% rule, the 40% rule of tapping out, where, you know, SAS soldiers, the best elite soldiers on the planet, when they're in their harsh training environment, when it gets really hard to have this bell where they can tap on this bell and they're like, I'm done, I'm tapping out. And all the research says that when they're tapping out, they're only 40% of the way there to actually realizing their full potential. There's very few clients that we've worked with, Kevin, that are at 70, 80, 90% of their potential. And if we can get them from 40 to 50, that's a huge uptake. And then from 50 to 60, etc. But it all gets back to really them thinking a different way about what they're doing themselves, having a level of urgency and having some really clear prioritization about what they need to do each day. And sometimes, as morbid or as weird as it may sound or strange as it may be, that the instances I've had in the last week with my auntie and my best friend's mother has really got me to really get some more clarity and real purpose and utilize my time more efficiently and more effectively than perhaps I was a couple of weeks ago.
It's so sad when we lose people that we love, and yet I do find it to be something that gets me back to a grounded state, which is, I don't have that much time left. Who knows? Nobody is guaranteed another day. We're all blessed to be able to wake up and be on the right side of the grass each morning. And yet we do often act as though, oh, I'll just get to that next month or next year or whenever, and eventually I'll accomplish my goals. And yet we don't know when we're going to be called to heaven. And when that moment happens, do we want to have left too much of what it is we could have accomplished undone? And that's really it happens all the time whenever I lose anybody who was meaningful and important in my life. And I just think back, wow, they contributed so much, or they lived a full life. One of my childhood best friend's fathers was, like just a wonderful gentleman. And he joked about living his life with such vigor and energy that he just hoped to slide into the grave fully spent.
Yeah.
He's not going to leave any of the energy of anything undone. And he lived that way. He was constantly uplifting other people, encouraging those of us who knew him, but also applauding people around him and just accomplishing so much. And so that's an inspiration to me as well. And I think about all the people that we could really be impacting. Nobody's at 100%. No matter how fully they're spending their week, nobody's like, I could not have made one more phone call this week, or I could not have fit in one more listing appointment this week, or I could not have walked 15 minutes of healthy exercise walk this week. I did it all. Everybody has room for a little bit more. And really, as you talk about that 40% notion, there's always room for some incremental improvement. And if ever you achieve mastery, then it gets really exciting. You get to bring others along with you and help them achieve at a higher level. You get to grow a team. You get to have a greater impact. You get to have a fuller expression of what I consider the legacy effect. Wow, Kevin really taught me so much. Or I'll never forget when Darren mentioned this. Or these are words that person spoke that have really shaped my life. So really, there's never a point where school is out for somebody who is committed to their own growth.
Yeah, I love the analogy of sliding into the grave, and just going back. It's a really good point. So my friend's mother, who's been diagnosed with motor neuron disease, only 2 months ago was the carer of her husband. And now he's realized he's gone downhill as well, and he's had an interesting life. And I spoke with him, would have been 4 days ago, and yet there's a lot of regret there. He's coming to the end of that road with a lot of regret, a lot of would have, should have, could have's about his life. And it's a really good version if you look at those two distinctions between sliding in the grave, spent knowing, you know what, I'm done. I've done everything. I've lived a life. I've become this version of myself. I've lived, I've loved, there's a legacy. It's all that there. Or you're really going lower down with this heavy weight on your shoulders of regret. So regardless of where you're at in your career right now, it's taking those two and reverse engineering it. As simple as it sounds to say, okay, whether I'm in this industry for 2 years, whether I'm here for 5 years, what is it that I'm going to exit with that's going to give me a level of fulfillment? I know I've made a level of progress. I know I've contributed to it. And just reverse engineering that in a simple way. And that's any area of your life, whether that's your health or your relationships, your children, it's the same thing. And by mapping that out and having a clear vision and a pathway, and then turning that into a mission, your mission. See, for me, goals come and go, they get achieved, but your mission is something that rarely fails. And they've done research around missions. Missions, when people have a mission, they're nearly always achieved. Mm-hmm. So it's having a mission in your life that gives you clear clarity, purpose, and passion about what you're doing. And we hope to help and aid people with that as well.
Absolutely. If you'd like to learn more, we'd welcome you to visit sixfiguremonth.com. That's the number 6figuremonth.com, sixfiguremonth.com. And we'd welcome the opportunity to meet with you privately, talk with you about your situation and how we might be able to help you in your career. Darren, I think about that whole notion of what somebody is able to achieve and the vacation effect. You know, when somebody's about to go on vacation and they get so much accomplished right before they go on a vacation. Lisa and I live in Florida in the winter months. We live in Seattle in the summer months. It's a long drive across the country, which we absolutely enjoy. Well, we know April 1st, we're hitting the road. Somewhere right around Easter, whenever that might be, we're going to head northeast or northwest and go to the old Pacific Northwest. We're going. So imagine how much work we get done in March when we know, well, we're going to be stuck in the car, not going to be able to do what we would normally be doing. We get a ton of work done. And it's amazing when somebody would slow down enough to really look at what it is that they're trying to accomplish and then chunk their time so that they are blocking the appropriate amount of time into their calendar to accomplish what it is that they need to accomplish. I think far too many sales professionals have a bit of an accidental nature to how they run their day. They're not in full control. They don't have the activities time blocked. And when something happens, they immediately shift gear. Great industry for those of us who have any type of attention deficit disorder, because boom, there's always something new. Now there's something new. Now there's something new. But in order for you to really accomplish at the highest levels, you don't need to be working 10-hour days. You really just need to have 2, 3, 4 hours a day where you are going to get stuff done. And I think about the most important things that you can get done in any sales career would be finding or attracting your ideal clients, getting those people to raise their hand and say, I'd like to talk to you about your service, your product, your efforts, what you do to help people, because I have a need. Maybe you can help me with my need. So you got lead generation to find your ideal people, and then an opportunity to service those opportunities and leads. So you've got lead fulfillment. Once you've generated the lead, created the client, then you deliver on your value proposition. And most real estate agents only focus on the fulfillment part. As soon as they find somebody who has a need, they go right to work at fulfilling it. But they're missing out on building the pipeline, having additional people coming in behind them. Okay, I've got 4 people I'm working with this week, but I've got 16 people I know I'm going to be working with over the course of the next month already. Good. Now I can focus.
Very good point. There's this, when you look at high performance in the sales arena, there's always the same consistencies I see. And one of those is the most successful people in sales are very good at the delayed gratification piece.
Right.
And the less successful ones seem to be all about the instant gratification. They need a hit today. They need a hit today, hit today, hit today. Otherwise, it's like, no, today wasn't a good day. Whereas the delayed gratification piece is having the instant, but also having delay. So working for today as well as working for the future. And it's a really good point that when people are consistently reactive, they're not building high-performing behaviors.
No, they're not.
And when you are consistent with high-performing behaviors, you can automate your day. You can grow a team around you to have that level of scalability, to get you some leverage, which is really important. But they're also at choice with how they invest their time. And I think that's a really important point, that when you look at time, you're either at choice with it or you're seeing it as an obligation. And people, unfortunately, might start doing some time chunking, some time blocking, but they see it as an obligation. They're not really at choice with when they put it in there. So they have all these nice colors in their diary, all these chunks of time, but it's not really a choice yet until they start doing that. And that's the difference, is that when you are at choice with how you want to invest your time, you avoid what I call is pain management. Pain management, same as time management, choice management, is that when you don't do what you have the time allocated to do, you have some pain at some point. It might not be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be next week. And you mentioned before about, prospecting or activity or lead generation. Each day that you avoid that, there is a pain point. Whether it's a week or a month is entirely up to that. So it's really being clear on where you choose to invest your time today, tomorrow, next week. And if you can be consistent around that, you'll automate those behaviors. You'll be high-performing behaviors because you will go towards that 3 to 4 hours of deep work. You will be in a state of flow. And the level of business that you acquire will certainly be a lot different to what it would have been on the flip side, being a reactive person. So great points.
Well, this has been a great conversation, as I knew it would, Darren. Thank you so much for being with us here on the Realty Funnels Podcast. Again, if you'd like to connect with me and Darren, talk about our 6-figure month coaching program, we welcome you to visit sixfiguremonth.com. We'd be honored and delighted to have a private conversation with you to talk about your situation and how we might be of service to you. Darren, anything else you'd like to share?
I think for anyone listening today, if you feel like you are stuck, or if you feel like perhaps you're not reaching that potential, whether you're at 40%, 60%, 80%, and you know there's more in you, and you want to realize more of that growth and that better version of yourself, is really start to reflect, get a journal out, start looking at your behaviors, start looking at where am I investing my time each and every day. And by understanding and diagnosing where your time is being invested, you work out something really, really quickly. That's incredibly important. You work out what it is that you're prioritizing in your life. Now, fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, you'll realize very quickly that the things you say you're prioritizing actually aren't the things you're prioritizing. But here's the good thing. the minute you're aware of that, you've got a chance and a choice to change the direction of your day, your week, your month, your year, and your life. So reflect, uncover, undiagnose, discover where it is and what it is you're prioritizing. If that doesn't give you where you want to get to, the desired outcome, then you've got a great choice to change that.
Thank you, Darren. Fantastic words. We'll end on that high note, and we look forward to connecting with you on the next Realty Funnels podcast, and we hope to have an opportunity to speak with you directly very soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Darren. Well done. Great stuff.